Hi, this is Tara. Today we're studying Sutra number 42. Sutra number 42 says Tatra śabda-artha-jñāna-vikalpaiḥ saṃkīrṇā savitarka samāpattiḥ. Tatra there, shabda words, artha meaning, purpose, also wealth. Jnana is knowing, vikalpa is alternation. It can also mean imagination. Saṃkīrṇā is interspersed, mixed up. Savitarka is unrefined gross deliberation or meditative poise. Samapatti is the coming together or the unification. Slightly complex set of sutras here because Patanjali is going into the technical aspect of Samapatti. Maharishi Vedavyasa's bhashya, he says, there the thought transformation, which is how he translates Samapatti, or Sri Ramaprasada translates it, there the thought transformation in which the options of word, meaning and idea are mixed up is called indistinct, verbal. So thought transformation in general is being described. So Samapatti is being described. By subsidiary classifying, it is fourfold. Okay, it is indistinct or verbal, distinct or wordless, meditative, and ultra meditative. Out of these descriptions, he is beginning with the first one, which is indistinct verbal. So the faculty of imagination, that is vikalpa, raises distinctions in the same thing and shows sameness in different things. What does vikalpa do? It raises distinctions in things that are the same and shows sameness in the different things. Thus, the word, meaning, and idea are confused. The example he gives is cow as word, the cow as object, and the cow as idea. And although they are different from each other, they are cognized as indistinct, as one. Because when we perceive, we merge word, object, and idea, and we just see cow. What Patanjali is saying is the word is different, the object is different, and the idea is different. Okay, so if an object such as cow is present in the trance consciousness of the yogi, the samadhi consciousness of the yogi, who has reached this state of thought transformation, being pierced through by the indeterminate notions of word, meaning, idea, then the thought transformation is mixed up and is called indistinct. Simply put, if the yogi reaches a state of samadhi and does not distinguish between word, object, idea, then his state of samadhi is indistinct. It is not distinct. This further becomes the seed of verbal and inferential knowledge. Verbal and inferential knowledge are born therefrom. It does not go along with verbal and inferential knowledge. Hence, the knowledge obtained by a yogi through the state of trance, called distinct thought transformation, is not confused by any other cognition. When does that happen? When the mind becomes free from the memories of verbal convention and the trance consciousness is devoid of the options of inferential and verbal cognitions. The object makes its appearance in the mind in its own distinct nature, unmixed up in word and meaning. The thought transformation is called distinct or nirvitarka. That becomes higher perception. Okay, so in this state, he is in this sutra, he is basically explaining savitarka, which is, you can call it the lower perception. Now, in the lower perception, and he's making the distinction so that we understand it. In nirvitarka, how a yogi perceives is that the thought, word, and idea are separated, and therefore his vision of an object, his view of an object in that state of samadhi is distinct. Okay, it is clear, it is distinct. In savitarka, if he is reaching the indistinct verbal cognition, is the first stage, first classification. If the word, the idea, and the object are perceived as one by the yogi, then his cognition is indistinct verbal. This is all you need to remember. The explanations on this sutra are quite long, and everybody likes to give a lot of examples. All you need to remember is if you're perceiving them without the layers separated, it is indistinct verbal. So Swami Satyananda says, in that state of samadhi, on account of alternating consciousness between word, true knowledge, and sense perception, the mixed state of mind is known as savitarka, samapatti. So remember that samapatti or samadhi is not a particular state. It covers a whole range of awareness comprising a field of superconsciousness. So the waking state, he says, is also a field of consciousness because there are activities, just talking, walking, laughing, etc. In the same way, samapatti includes various states. As the and just to clarify the distinction between yoga, samadhi, and samapatti. Yoga and samadhi are practices that you use to attain a state of samapatti. This is explained in more detail in yesterday's sutra, sutra number 41. Please do refer back for more detail. So as the samadhi becomes deeper, the aspirant goes into finer and finer realms of consciousness. The first state of this super consciousness is known as savitarka. Okay. In this, the mind moves between three things: word, knowledge, sense perception. Thus, our knowledge about an object is confused or mixed up. You can't say that it is perfectly clear. The example he gives is a rose. We think of its color, its weight, its smell, its structure. Knowledge of these qualities is mixed up in our conception of the rose. When I think of a rose, I might think of a color. When you think of a rose, you might think of a smell, a weight, a feeling, a texture, a rose that somebody gave you at some point in time, a memory, right? So our knowledge of what a rose is highly, highly subjective, is what he's saying. We have not, without that separation, there is no absolute truth about that rose that you and I have. Therefore, our knowledge is indistinct, verbal. This is the savikalpa state, okay, which is to be transcended in meditation. So when the mind goes beyond these qualities and becomes one with the object, what is samadhi? Samadhi is absorption. Absorption, which means, as explained yesterday, the cognizer, the cognized, and the process of cognition become one. So when the mind goes beyond these qualities and becomes one with the object, without reference to particular qualities, it is in a state of samadhi. In the first state of samadhi, called savikalpa, there's a mixture of three elements: shabda, artha, and jnana. Shabda is the word, vachaka, which indicates the object. The object proper is called artha, and we know, so he says we know the word Shivlinga is one thing, object Shivlinga is quite a different thing. Furthermore, the knowledge that arises in our mind while meditating upon the Shivlinga is quite a different thing. So all these three elements are necessary aspects of the process of concentration. So in savitarka, they are mixed up. They are indistinct. Sometimes there is a simultaneous awareness of śabda-artha-jñāna, and sometimes there's only awareness of them one at a time. So these two states keep on changing. If you're concentrating on a particular form, the form remains, but the continuity of that awareness keeps changing. Why is this? Okay, this is because of bija. Bija is seed. Now think of it as a seed with different layers. The outermost layer is the husk. The innermost layer is the essential part. So due to this seed, that is the impurities caused by past experiences, the elements of knowledge becomes mixed. So seed is the basis of mind. The bija is the basis of mind. It is the awareness of the support which the mind takes. So when we meditate, we first visualize form. So when you are penetrating these layers, you're peeling these layers off one by one. So then the deeper qualities can be visualized. So savitarka is the outermost layer of the seed, and below it are the layers called nirvitarka, savichara, and nirvichara. So these are the four layers of the bija. The sense consciousness is the outer layer of the seed. When it transcends pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, it transcends also savitarka samadhi and other finer states. Ultimately, it sees the finest entity called drashta or atma. So this is one explanation also for why When people go on about science-based, evidence-based, is there fact, is this quantifiable, is this measurable? You're basically just addressing the outer layer of the bija. You're just looking at form. So y- this process of meditation is a transcending. So when you're transcending pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, when you're entering samadhi, you are transcending the layers. So it is very, very important to go beyond just what the data presents. So without a seed, consciousness cannot function. In yoga, it's called pratyaya, which is the basis. So you need a symbol also, which is called the linga. In savitarka, they cannot be separated. They are mixed. Okay, so you need a basis, you need a symbol, you need a word. You are starting your meditation. At this stage, you cannot just jump to the abstract. It's very difficult for the mind to grasp. Therefore, it is not that this stage is inadequate or it is wrong. It is that this is what is required at this stage. Okay, so those who are practicing japa and meditation, mantra form, should remember that after having seen the form in meditation, the consciousness should alternate between śabda-artha-jñāna. So what is Swami Satyananda saying? He's saying when you use form in meditation, practice separating the layers, shabda, artha, and jnana. Shabda is a thought process in the form of words. Okay, jnana is the inner sense perception, and artha is the object. So artha means the ultimate purpose, and that is very difficult. It is the real knowledge of the object. So by attaining samadhi through a particular symbol, you have complete control over the awareness of the object upon which you are meditating. And this is what happens in samyama, which includes the threefold processes of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So samyama means holding the object completely in awareness and keeping the awareness of the object under full control. So in savitarka samadhi, the awareness is free from imperfections. There's absolute peace and tranquility. There are no alternating oscillations and waverings of the mind. There's another kind of samadhi called nirvitarka. It is important to note that there's already in us a fragment of achievement of the superconscious state, but that lasts only for 1 or 2 moments. So if you remember when they were explaining the different states of samadhi, what is savitarka, what is nirvitarka, they were talking about bija and nirbija samadhi. That is why bija or the layers are very, very important in progressing into this one. So when you have an object for meditation, simply put, he's saying try and see the 3 aspects of the object separately, visualize them, alternate them, go from name to form to meaning, go to meaning, name to form. Should try and see your own awareness on the basis of these elements. And he says it's a very good meditation to attempt. And if you find it difficult to keep your consciousness alternating between these 3 states, practice only japa in which the word is audible. So you first think about the word, you also produce the word, and then you may add the form of the word. Then you think about its various qualities. It is difficult to give a correct explanation of the state of mind, but it's a wonderful method of mental control when you separate the 3 elements of consciousness and make them fuse into one. So the practice is to separate them, fuse them, separate them, fuse them. Try each one separately, try them together. Okay, that is from Swami Satyananda. Swami Vivekananda says, sound, meaning, and resulting knowledge being mixed up is called samadhi with reasoning. So sound here means vibration, meaning the nerve currents which conduct it, and knowledge, reaction. So all the various meditations we have had so far, Patanjali called savitarka. That is meditation with reasoning. The mind is involved. As we go higher into the dhyanas, he gives us higher and higher meditation. In these meditations, the ones that are called with reasoning, we keep the duality of the subject and the object, which results from the mixture of word, meaning, and knowledge. Now, this is important because ultimately we are aiming for non-duality, right? aiming for yoga, we're aiming for the merging. But all the gurus are basically explaining through the bhashyas at this stage, we are aiming for duality. So this is a complex procedure. Yoga is not just acrobatics, it's not just asana, it's literally just playing with the mind. And later on, you'll see this is where Osho warns that, this is where a yogi can go mad. If you don't know what you're doing, your play of duality, of reality, of subject object, of process, of cognition, of the stages of samadhi, if you don't follow the instructions, you can really play with your mind and it can go very, very wrong. Right? So, this knowledge, this wisdom is very, very systematic and it's very, very revelatory. So it's important to go through it stage by stage. Okay. So there is first the external vibration, the word. This is carried inward by the sense currents, and that is the meaning that is absorbed. After that, there comes a reactionary wave in the chitta, which is knowledge. But the mixture of these three make up what we call knowledge. In all the meditations up to this, we get this mixture as an object of meditation. The next samadhi will take us higher. So this systematic peeling back of the layers of the mind is an almost mental surgical process that it's very important to do in a considered way. B.K. Iyengar says, at this stage, called savitarka samapatti, the word, meaning, and content are blended and become special knowledge. So in the refined state of consciousness, words and their meanings are simultaneously and harmoniously blended with understanding so that consciousness becomes engrossed in a new kind of knowledge. This is savitarka samapatti. Osho says savitarka samadhi is the samadhi in which the yogi is still unable to differentiate between the real knowledge, knowledge based on words, and knowledge based on reasoning of sense perceptions, which all remain in the mind in a mixed state. So Osho is making the distinction between knowledge based on words, knowledge based on analysis, and knowledge based on sense perception. And he says in this stage, they are all mixed up. There are two types of samadhis, he explains. One is savitarka, the second is nirvikalpa and nirvitarka. These are the two states. First one achieves savitarka samadhi, that is samadhi with the logical mind still functioning, with the reasoning still functioning. And that is called with bija. And nirvikalpa or nirvitarka is nirbija, where there is no seed, where these layers have sort of disintegrated. So what is he saying? Savitarka is the samadhi in which the yogi is still unable to differentiate between the real layers of knowledge. Okay. And he will not be able yet to differentiate what is real, because the real can be known only from the center. There's no other way to know it. So he's starting on that process. He's come closer. Something of the center is filtering in. You know that there are layers. Maybe you can't distinguish them. You have some perception, some glimpse. But the old mind, the mind that still sees these aspects as unified, is not completely gone. So real knowledge, he says, is that knowledge when the mind does not distort at all, when the mind has completely disappeared in a sense, it has become so transparent that whether it is there or not makes no difference. In this state, the yogi is in deep confusion. The confusion comes something from the real, something from the knowledge, something from the words, something from memory, and it's all sort of mingled perception. This is where Osho says the yogi can go mad. If there is nobody to take care in the state, to guide, to advise, the yogi can go mad because so many dimensions. It's kind of like you are at a crossroads of your mind. You are at an intersection of breezes blowing in from different parts of the world. You can very well be blown off course. It can be very, very blustery. So a guide, and I think I've said this in previous sutras also, that please don't attempt a lot of these things unless you are in a rigorous practice. And this is why the guru is very, very important. Somebody who has walked that path and knows which way to go, and more importantly, how to teach. That is why good gurus, genuine gurus with knowledge, gurus with experience are so, so precious and valuable. Okay. For instance, you can read the stuff, and when you sort of kind of feel like, oh, I get it all, Osho says, you can suddenly feel aham brahmasmi, I am God. And now he's unable to differentiate whether this is coming from the Upanishad that he has been reading, or he himself has reasoned it out, or if it is a rational conclusion. Okay. And you see, so especially with a statement like that, in a world where we see so much fakeness, so much ego, people who've accessed scriptures and sort of co-opting and rewriting them to make stories and become storytellers and story weavers without really understanding the import. Or even in yoga, people who have become fake yoga gurus, who've become toxic yoga gurus, who are commercializing it beyond what is required. So it's very easy to access this knowledge, but to know how to use it, how to apply it, and not be blown off the straight and narrow path is a completely different game altogether. This is what Osho is warning against, because you can read something that says I am God, you can practice something that says I am God, and you can think you're God, but are you God? I mean, in essence we are, but are we there yet? No. So it's very important to make these kinds of distinctions. Barbara Stoller Miller says, Osho, of course, goes on and on, which I'm not going into because he likes to meander, and there are many very interesting and important concepts that he weaves in. As I've said before, please use this these episodes to go deeper into these texts. I'm only giving you a gist of it. So Barbara Stoller Miller says, when concepts formed from knowledge based on their words and their meanings tainted, contemplative poise is broken by conjecture. So I feel that somewhere here Barbara Stoller Miller sees this as a negative, whereas as Swami Vivekananda and B.K. Iyengar explain, it's not a negative, it's necessary at this stage. Okay, so reminder that this section deals with the technical aspect of Samapatti. And the modes of Samapatti result from the various ways in which thought is modified into the form of the object. In the conjectural mode, what is indistinct verbal, she calls it the conjectural mode, thought focuses on the name and the meaning of the object presented to it. When it's actually thought, form, and meaning. But okay, that's her translation. Thank you so much for listening. Please do come back tomorrow for Sutra number 43. Do leave, like, share, subscribe, but also your comments and questions. I need to know if I'm reaching you, if it makes sense, if I'm not explaining it properly, if you have, your own commentary that you want to add to it. So please do connect. Thank you.